In this video, I'm going to show you the Poverty Creek trails just outside of Blacksburg, Virginia. This was the first time that we had ever ridden these trails. I'm doing this video as a voiceover because when I got to the parking lot, I realized I forgot the foam windscreen for my GoPro, and that meant that I was going to have a lot of wind noise. So I'll leave some of the noise, but it actually did better than I thought. However, it was going to be pretty noisy without that windscreen, so I'm just going to talk through these trails. So we just left from the parking lot on the west side of the mountain. That's the Blunderbuss Pond lower lot, and so that's the parking area on the opposite side of the mountain of Blacksburg. So there are a couple parking spots on the other side of the mountain by Blacksburg. So we started off there at the beginning of the video on the actual Poverty Creek trail. It's a beginner trail, a green trail. Now we're on a trail called Prickly Pear. So what we did was we did Poverty Creek, went over to a trail called Royal, which was pretty short, and then we got on this trail called Prickly Pear. And this is a black diamond trail. And the person that was in front of me there at the beginning of the video, it's my buddy Brett. He's actually from this area. Well, so he lived in my town for a while, but he had gone to school in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech, moved to Florida where I'm at, and then had just moved back here to Blacksburg just before we got there. So Prickly Pear has a lot of rocks. So on this side, the black diamond trails are pretty chunky. Like there's just a lot of rocks. I mean, it's not like big, huge rock waterfalls like you get in maybe Pisgah, but there's just a ton of rocks on these trails, and that's what makes them to be considered a black diamond trail. But it is, I love this style of riding, this type of trail. You just got to pick your lines and find the best way to get around the rocks or over the rocks. And it's a grind, right? It's not just fast, flowy trails. And the great thing about this trail system, the Poverty Creek trail system, is the variety. I was really impressed with the variety. So these trails, Prickly Pear, and then we're going to get on a trail called Skull Cap, and then Trillium. Those are all pretty rocky. They're all very similar, and you get some really steep climbs. Like you saw me in some of the beginning clips of Prickly Pear, where it was just a grind up really steep. In fact, there was one section where I was just determined I was going to ride it, and my buddy Brett was behind me walking his bike and was staying up with me. That's how slow I was going up some of these climbs. I mean, when I say steep, we're talking like 20-25% grade. And then you get some downhills like this, and again, just enough rocks and tech to keep it fun as far as, technical riding without being like just crazy technical. And the bike I'm riding on this trail was a trail bike with 140 in the front, 130 in the back. It's a specialized stump jumper, slack head angle, like a 65-degree head angle. I felt this bike was absolutely perfect for this trail. I probably would have ridden my Enduro bike if I rode it again, just to kind of see what it was like. But it's there's a trail system where just a good mid-travel trail bike is absolutely perfect, especially when we got on the other side of the mountain on some of the trails that I'll show you coming up in the video, where it was not as chunky. The trail bike did really well. So this is a trail called Skull Cap. This is right off Prickly Pear. So Prickly Pear comes into this trail, and then you take a right on the Skull Cap, and then we're going to go over to a trail called Trillium. Again, all of these that I'm showing right now are considered black diamond. So Prickly Pear, Skull Cap, Trillium, all black diamond trails, and rightfully so, right? I would not recommend this particular trail for a beginner. Intermediates would be fine, as long as you just make sure you pick your lines. But like I said, up and down, the conditions were really good that day. They had a lot of rain. I think the week before it had dried out. None of the trails that we rode were really muddy. There were a few just puddles we had to go through on some of the flatter trails, but these trails were in really good condition. Also pretty hot that day. This was August when we were riding, and it was every bit as hot and humid as Florida. I was kind of surprised, actually. I did a trip on this particular road trip where I went through Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, and every place I rode I sweated just as much as I do in Florida. The thing about these trails, any trails in the southeast, is once you start getting the rain, the woods kind of hold in the humidity, and it was just super humid. But like I said, you get some good downhill sections, rocky enough where you can't just let it go. You gotta be careful. You gotta be really on your game, which is what makes it fun. Some people don't like these type of trails, and you can see there in the video where it's pretty rocky. But some people like just fast, flowy. So if you like that, then I would say stay on the east side. So the way this trail system works is you've basically got a mountain with a ridge on top, and there's some trails that go along the ridge. A trail called Horse Nettle. There's a Forest Service road that goes along the ridge. And so on the west side of the ridge, you've got these more rocky trails. Okay, now we turn onto, we're still in Skullcap actually. But the trails on the west side of the ridge are the rockier trails. And then on the east side of the ridge, closer to Blacksburg, you get the more flowy trails. And we'll come up to a trail called Crosscut coming up a little bit, a trail called Blunderbuss. And I'll talk about Blunderbuss because that is probably one of the best trails out there. And then there's a trail here called Gateway, which I do not show in the video. We rode Gateway the day before, and it's a Black Diamond trail. We actually rode up it from the parking lot and then came back down, and Gateway was just awesome. I mean, I would highly recommend it. It's a Black Diamond, but it is just awesome. Trillium we're on now. Prickly Pear, Skullcap, Trillium, all are very similar in their terrain. You got some steep climbs, you got some good little descents, a lot of rocks, a lot of tech. There's some little puddle there we had to go through. But like I said, just enough tech to keep it spicy, keep it interesting without being just crazy. So types of bikes I would recommend for this trail bikes, and enduro bikes would be okay, especially like all mountain. Like my enduro bike is a 29er with 160 in the front and 150 in the back. Would have been fine for this trail too. If I was only going to ride these trails on the west side, I probably would have ridden the enduro bike. But once I got over to the east side, I was glad I had the trail bike with a little bit shorter travel, a little bit more nimble, a little bit lighter. More puddles here. Okay, so what we've done is we climbed up. I can't name the trail because it's not on the map and does go through some private land, but it was a really nice climb. And then now we're descending a trail called Crosscut. And so this is over on the side where there's a trail called Blunderbuss. There's a climb called Highway to get up to them. It's more kind of like a park, a mountain bike park area. And this Crosscut trail is really smooth, not technical, fast, flowy, fun. One that I would recommend doing if you go on this side and climb all the way up. A climbing trail called Highway. It's kind of a double track that you can climb from the east side parking lot to get up here. So again, Crosscut, super fun trail. Just the type of trail that it's probably one of my favorite types of trails of riding. It's just fast, flowy. Okay, this is a trail called Blunderbuss. Black Diamond, super well built. In fact, my buddy Brett, his buddy built this trail, and hats off. So if you ever watch this video, great job on it. Lots of jumps, lots of berms. You get into some area where it's tech. Just a super fun trail with a lot of variety. The rock tech stuff is fairly challenging without being over the top technical. But this top section had just tons of berms and jumps. And like I said, the trail was built really well. There's a jump there we decided not to do. We just wanted to keep going, but that was one we looked at, but decided not to do it that day. Would have taken a little bit of kind of looking at the line and planning. But coming on down Blunderbuss, it's a fairly long trail. Like it's a few miles long, and actually I'm looking on Trail Forks right now. It says it's 1.1 miles. It seemed longer than that. As I mentioned, I think the trail builders just did an amazing job with this trail, with the terrain. Okay, now we're getting to some of the rocks. So really nicely laid out rocks just to give it a little spice, but easily rollable. And there was actually one section where I decided not to do it because I heard my son, who's in front of me, hit his bottom bracket on the rock, so I decided to ride around it. But all this stuff, just super fun to ride. I would say a fairly advanced intermediate rider would be fine. My son's on a 27.5 bike in front of me. Now this is pretty steep. Like, it's steeper than you can tell in the video. I think this is the one I decided not to hit. And that was I did go over that one. There's one like that where it looked like I was going to hit my bottom bracket. Decided not to do it. But my son's on a 27.5 bike with 160 in the front, or actually 170 in the front, and I think 160 in the back. And so that was a good choice for this trail. And my 29er trail bike was fine for it. Like I said, this trail is a little bit steeper than you can tell on the GoPro, but I love this type of trail, right, where you've got the variety of the flow, and then you've got the rocks to ride over, and then there's some jumps coming up at the bottom. So again, trail called Blunderbuss, a must-do if you're a more advanced beginner or advanced rider. So like I said, these trails are very accessible from the east side parking lot, Blunderbuss. There is that trail called Highway that you can ride to the top. And if you're not familiar with this area, Blacksburg is a really cool town. It's obviously a college town since it's Virginia Tech, but it is a really cool town with good restaurants, good vibe, and the parking lot for the trail system is only like 10 minutes outside of town. So definitely a place that I want to go back and visit. We got in 2 days of riding here and covered most of the trails, but they were so fun that I would want to ride them again. Like I said before, Gateway is a must-do. It's a fairly challenging climb. It was a lung buster to get to the top, but coming back down Gateway was a blast. I think if I did this again, I'd probably go up Highway, take the Forest Service road, and then come back down Gateway. Okay, here's another rock garden. And then we're coming up to a jump here at the bottom of Blunderbuss. It's going to be kind of right at the end. And like I said, so you're doing these berms and jumps, and then you do rock gardens, and then you get back on berms and jumps. So Blunderbuss is definitely one of those trails that you need to do. Okay, here's the jump. A little bit bigger than it looks on the GoPro. You got to jump over some plants there, so pretty decent sized gap. Continuing down Blunderbuss, almost at the bottom. So we're going to tee in to, like I said, that double track called Highway. And then what we did was we climbed back up. Since we had parked on the west side, we had to make our way back over. So we climbed back up Highway, and then we get on this trail called Jacob's Ladder, which is another super fun trail. It's hard to pick a winner, but if I had to pick my favorite trail at this whole trail system, I'd say it's Jacob's Ladder. Unfortunately, on this trail, I did not get a chance to get the top. I just forgot to turn the GoPro on. At the top, you're going straight down the fall line. Smooth trail, not technical, very little turns, and fairly steep. So you can just get a ton of speed at the top of Jacob's Ladder. A little bit disappointed that I didn't get that on GoPro, but the bottom section is a blast too. You get more into a little bit more twists and turns, a little bit more technical. That straight fast section, I don't think there was hardly any rocks or roots. You could just get a ton of speed, and this is another trail that's a must-do. So, to hit all these trails that I'm talking about in this video, you're going to be riding for 3 hours out here at least, maybe probably even longer. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's fairly hot, so we were getting fairly tired. At least I was. Can't speak for my son, but I was getting pretty tired and running out of water, so I think we were out for over 3 hours. This section of Jacob's Ladder is just a blast. Just the classical East Coast, twisty through the trees, some tech, some smooth stuff. Super fun. So what we did was, after we finished Jacob's Ladder, we went back up the Forest Service Road, went down Royal, and then went back to the parking lot. So that is the trail system at Poverty Creek. Thanks for watching.